Hello, everybody, and welcome back to One Hub Racing. We are here on a Sunday evening for our 20th episode, Jono, of the Late Night Talk Show. Round 20 out of 21. We're almost done and dusted. And Brazil, Jono, it's a track you and I both agree we've never really had too much success on.
Yeah, never gone too well here myself. Actually, quite like the circuit. It's a classic F1 track, isn't it? Feels like it's always been there, and we always get good racing. But unfortunately, most of it didn't involve me back when I was racing. But from watching the races on Friday, there was some good battles. I think plenty of overtaking, lots of slipstream and ERS management and stuff as well. So yeah, I think it was a pretty decent Friday night.
Yeah, definitely. I was particularly impressed with some of the racing in the Pinnacle and the Prestige tier. We finally had a good old clean race in the Pinnacle tier, which we'll come to shortly, which was obviously good to see. But first of all, the podium tier, all of our championships are wrapped up, and you couldn't really take it away from Gaza and Danestar. You have to say, over the course of the season, they deserved it, and obviously Gaza, a driver we're going to meet at Silverstone in real life this year for the first time, and you have to say it's always nice when the championships, go to good guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Gaz has been racing for a long time, hasn't he? And he's made steady improvements, I think, as well, and picked up some good results. He's been there or thereabouts, hasn't he? Most races always gives his all. You always know he'll be a clean driver as well. Certainly don't see him in the stewards' office very often. And yeah, they made a good team, didn't they? Obviously, Dangster really quick as well, and obviously taking that title as well. So they made a great team, and Gaza made a good, good backup driver, I guess, to Dangster in the end, didn't he? And brought home the constructors thoroughly deserved.
Yeah, it was the last title remaining to play for, and it went right down to the wire. We'll come to that in a second. But first of all, Jono, a lap of honour. All three of our tiers took part in this to pay tribute to Charlie Whiting, which obviously a nice gesture. And he's done a lot for Formula One over the years. Just a quick word on Charlie, and he'll be sadly missed.
Yeah, definitely. I was shocked. Everyone was shocked, weren't they? The timing as well, was just, I don't know, just added to that, I guess. But I think, people have spoken, in length. He was just absolutely iconic, wasn't he? Did massive, massive for F1 and will be sorely missed, obviously. But his legacy lives on, doesn't it? And in terms of the safety and, side of it, obviously in particular, but also he was liked by everybody, balanced the drivers, the teams, didn't he? Managed to stay friends with everybody despite that difficult role. So, yeah, and it was great to see the lap of honour, obviously, across all three tiers on Friday. And, yeah, it's sadly missed, but our drivers definitely, sent him off in the right way on Friday.
Speaking of Friday, our end of season survey was released. So if you haven't filled that out, please could you check your tier chat. Click on the link. It'll only take a couple minutes just to give your feedback on the season, your chance as well to give us any thoughts on improvements and suggestions you have going forward. Thank you to those who have already completed the survey. We've had a lot of responses, a lot of positive responses. Jono, a lot of drivers that think your stewarding has been excellent. So yeah, there's another little accolade to add to your collection.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Stewarding always a difficult job because naturally, in an incident with two drivers, one's always likely to come out not happy with the decision. So we always try our best to be fair to everybody, of course. So yeah, obviously pleased to hear that majority have thought the stewarding has been decent this season.
So on to Brazil. Podium tier took place at 7 p.m. Danestar, the champion already, took pole position, 6 wide just behind him. Those two are sharing the front row a lot lately. I expect them to be in a higher tier come next season. Vitinho on his debut in third position, good qualifying for him. Gaza in fourth, so Red Bull taking the early charge to try and get that constructors. Coleman in fifth, who wasn't feeling well. Liam in sixth, Jamie seventh, Stevie eighth. Jamie not able to complete his final qualifying lap because of that incident with Liam. D-Boydan ninth. Rex in the top 10. Jonas surprisingly outside the top 10. Not sure why he didn't go on to those supers, Jono, when it was going to be a wet race. Obviously that gives you a free try. Well, not a free try choice, but you're going to be
Yeah.
not have to run the dry. So Yeah, a bit strange that one there, but intermediate weather for the race around Brazil. You would think these drivers and the fans and everyone would be kind of used to this sort of weather.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you do come to expect it. At this track day, it's one of the ones where you think there's a decent chance of rain. So I'd be surprised if most of the drivers at least didn't get in at least a bit of wet weather practice beforehand.
So the two Toro Rossos came together off the start. We're hearing Coleman didn't get away at all. I can only think that's what happened to D-Boy Danny. He must have crashed in. Jamie had to take avoiding action, but disappointed for Coleman. We did hear that he had to literally run because he wasn't feeling well. But yeah, not ideal for
Yeah, I think.
himself or the rest of the drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he said his power cut between qualifying and the race in the steward's office. So that's why he couldn't move off at the start. So either way, disappointing for him and obviously for anyone caught up in it as well.
By lap 6 and 7, we already had 5 retirees. So the two Toro Rossos, the two Renaults, and Rex in the McLaren not even able to, get to their first pit stop. And speaking of pit stop, Jono, this is where it started to get interesting because drivers started to come in around lap 12, 13, which obviously isn't the halfway point, which led us to believe that there were going to be 2 stopping this in these conditions when you would have thought it would have been a straight one stop into to Inter. Now
Yeah.
the safety car came out, which really closed up the field. We were worrying in the commentary box it was going to be a bit of a bland second half of the race, and my goodness, did it give us something to commentate on. So CXY took the lead. Him and Danestar traded. Jamie was up to third, and he was kind of that guy in that position where everyone was on the same sort of tires, and it's one of those positions, Jonah, where it's if I pit and the others don't, I might lose a position, but if the others pit and I don't, I might not make it to the end.
Yeah, it's always so difficult in that situation. It can literally make or break your race, can't it? And yeah, you can think about it as much as you want, but often it comes down to a flip of a coin, really, whether it works out for you in the end or not.
Yeah, so commiserations to Jamie. He wasn't able to finally get that podium that he ever so wants. And then, with 5-6 laps to go, it became Red Bull versus Ferrari. So Ferrari needed to outscore Red Bull by 11 points or more. They only ended up outscoring them by 10. But they gave it a good fight, CXY and Dane. And a moment I would like to pick, because I want to ask your thoughts on this, John. It wasn't reported to the steward's office, but it was on lap 35. I am sure of it. It's with Jonas and Danestar. And Jonas basically gives him a little shove and says, "You're not coming past," even though perhaps, he could have given the room. But what I want to ask is, if you're fighting for a Constructors' Championship, would you have done the same treatment, even if it was within the rules, but perhaps slightly unfair? So I am going to find it, and one day I'll learn to write down the actual time of the clips that I want to ask you about. But it's right towards the end of the. It's right towards the end of the race. So Danestar, if you're listening, help us out. What lap did Jonas push you wide in the last sector? So Jonas was actually leading because he didn't pit. Gaza didn't pit either. So those two were going to the end. Everyone else came in for another stop, albeit CXY and Danestar quite late on in the race. I think they realised they weren't going to make it.
1 hour 16:25 or 24.
Okay.
That's the end of the incident. So you're on about 16:20.
Yeah, I see it. So Danestar more than a car's length wide, and Jonas just completely runs him to the curb. A lap and a sector to go, Jono. The championship up for grabs. Are those the sort of moves that sometimes you just have to do?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess if you're on the receiving end of it, you're always going to be pretty annoyed, I guess. But yeah, he just ran him out of room, didn't he? Ran him out of track. We've seen it in real life from drivers. We've seen like Hamilton and that do it to others. So I can imagine Danestar being a bit annoyed about that. But for Jonas, I guess at the time, it was possible shot at the constructors, wasn't it? And it was a position at the end of the race he was fighting for. So at the time, you just go for it, I guess. The gap is there, and so you take the chance. What you might not get another.
As they come across the line on lap 35, there's almost contact
Yeah,
between them. They're both like weaving, and then Jones goes back to the inside. I think he knew that if he could get that position, the championship would stay alive to the last race. But Danestar was able to prevail on much fresher tyres, and Red Bull went on to take the championship. CXY took the win. Jonas up from 11th to finish 3rd. Gazza in 4th. Jamie in 5th. Disappointed, but you have to say Jamie's improved in the wet over the course of the season. That's for sure. Vitinha had to do a couple extra pit stops in 6th position. And then the 2 Red Bulls both scoring points even though they were a lap down. So good result for the Sauber team. Pinnacle tier, Jono. Brumadinho on pole. Heskey time in 2nd position. Sam in 3rd. White Fountain in 4th. Good qualifying from White Fountain to get up there amongst the perhaps slightly quicker rivals. It was intermediate conditions. Doncall all the way down in 14th place and Mali as well in 7th place. So the guys you'd expect to see at the top, Jono, perhaps weren't just about able to get the qualifying hook together in those conditions.
yeah, absolutely. I think Kieran and I were both excited about the lineup for the start of the race. In Brumadinho and Heskey time, 2 drivers we haven't seen traditionally at the front make it onto the front row. And White Fountain, as well as you say, was impressive in 4th. Qualifying has been his weakness, I guess. He's usually coming forward in the races from further back than that. But Doncall, it just doesn't happen for him in the wet, does it? We've seen it all season long. Once the conditions get changeable, Doncall seems to struggle somewhat.
Off the start, and I have to say, the first couple opening laps, Jono, very clean indeed. When I was watching it, the Pinnacle tier, as we know, hasn't been the safest of tiers as of late, but you got to give credit where it's due. It was all clean, and it was shaping up for a really exciting race. And then suddenly, everyone just started to retire. TK was the first guy. Sam and Brumadinho were battling for the lead. Sam went for the undercut. And then absolute heartbreak for Brumadinho as he came into the pits and got stuck. In my opinion, is got to be one of the worst glitches Codemasters have ever put into a game.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous glitch. It's race ending, isn't it? And I think Jamie mentioned that he had it in a race he did earlier tonight as well. So it's a reasonably common glitch. It's affecting a lot of drivers, and it literally ruins your race. And even more heartbreak for him. Who was in the lead at the time. He was looking almost certain for at least a podium. And yeah, how people complain about the Codemasters games. Some of it is right. Some of it is not always justified. But in this case, the glitch is ridiculous. It should have been patched. And I sort of think it's sort of scandalous, really, that we got to this point now and it's still in the game. Really disappointing.
That battle for 3rd position, obviously you got Mali and Doncall trying to fight back through. And then you've got that, Iron West, White Fountain on the opposite strategy, dropped down at the start, got back up there, and then able to, scythe through towards the closing stages of the race. You had a fantastic battle between Matt and Pete before it ended in kind of miscommunication in what is probably the narrowest part of the track. But that battle for 3rd, it was just going on and on and on, and it felt like whoever was in front, whenever they lost one position, they went down 4 places by the end of the lap.
Yeah, it was amazing seeing drivers, as you say, head in the queue and literally one overtake or one small mistake and they dropped 3 or 4 positions. And yeah, it was awesome to watch lap after lap, as you say. We saw it in other tiers as well. That the slipstream and the DRS it's just so powerful up to turn 1. So nobody was able to break away. It didn't matter how hard he pushed through the middle of the lap. As long as they were within sort of touching distance, coming out of and up the hill, the position was regained again. So it was just to and fro for a long time.
All right, Jono, 1 hour and 16 minutes and 5 seconds on the stream. I want to ask you about this because you're a man who's won races. You're a man who's led some races. How scary of a moment was that for Sam? He was denied the battle with Brumadinho and he had the gap pretty much for the rest of the race. Didn't get any airtime, but somehow Kieran managed to catch that on stream. Do you think it was a heart and a mouth moment for Sam?
Yeah, he'd have been just a little bit nervous losing it there, wouldn't he? Luckily for him, big runoff area, which there isn't all the way around this track, but luckily had plenty of grass to sort of take to and a big enough gap for it not to affect him in the end. But yeah, that would have been a scary moment. You know, we all sort of assumed that Sam was cruising really at that point. But it just shows you've got to concentrate right until you cross the finish line, or you know anything can happen.
So Sam took the win ahead of Ian West, who has been impressive. Didn't make a mistake on the final lap this time. Was able to take second place. Mally up to third from seventh on the grid. White Fountain, you guessed it, finished in the top five. Scorpion as well from 11th. Good result for him in fifth. Matt in sixth position. Jor in seventh. Lukey recovered to eighth after contact, I believe, with one of the Haas drivers. Pete DNF'd just on, I believe, was the last lap, or penultimate last lap in ninth. So disappointing for himself. And then the rest of the field, slowly took their turn to destroy their car. Onto the prestige tier, Jono. Another fantastic race, it has to be said. The battle, they were at some points going four wide. When I watched it back, I found myself where I just couldn't skip even half a lap, because they were just so side by side. You were almost waiting for something to happen, but the top boys definitely showed us how it's done. Clean start as well on the opening lap. Unfortunately, though, as we get round to lap 2, and we'll find it on the stream, there is a bit of an incident, I believe, at turn 4. Yeah, so Ollie and Francis retire. So it's 32 and about 50. Yeah. So many cars fighting for position. I mean, you're just waiting for something to happen if you're one of the cars slightly behind, aren't you? And Francis gets tapped by, I don't know who that was, Elku, I think. And then he's out the race. Ollie's out the race. And yeah, it was looking so good up until then. But the battle continued on for the lead. Obviously, Jono, I did what you told me to do and, hit Odems. But
oh yeah, thanks for that. Yeah,
that's okay. You know, I like to keep my promises. So me and Odems fell further down the order. But I really like this about Brazil. You've got the long straight, and then you've got this. It's one of those corners where you don't have to pass into turn 1. You can line it up for turn 4. And I think a lot of tracks, we watched Australian Real F1 today and saw how difficult it was to overtake. And you just think, corners like that were designed not purposely for overtaking, but they just encourage it so much.
Yeah, definitely. Turn 4, we saw more overtaking there, didn't we, probably, than anywhere else. But yeah, it is a great circuit for overtaking. Obviously, quite a lot of strategy was involved as well. We're seeing lots of drivers running pretty much 0 on the ERS in the middle sector, so they could absolutely nail it and use all those engine modes, on those straight sections to attack and defend with. So there was lots of, playing with the ERS. And just loads of great battling, and yeah, it's great to see. And if you did get past into turn 1, you've got a good chance to come straight back into turn 4 as well.
This is another battle, Jono, where up to second place, Blizzard did get away a bit eventually in the second half of the race, but up to second, all the way down to, I'd say, 6th position, Odins was closing in rapidly towards the end as well. It was one of those things, again, like in the Pinnacle tier, if you get passed by one car, you seem to fall right to the back of the queue, and then you have to start all the way over to push forward.
Yeah, it was very, very similar. So many drivers close together. And, you just get that DRS train, don't you, where nobody can make any headway. Everyone's getting a DRS off each other. And some drivers getting sort of double slipstream effects as well. So the driver in the lead was pretty helpless. But behind that, everyone just getting DRS and towing each other along.
Let's talk about this incident between Rafa and Julian. Obviously, Julian, the constructors and the drivers champion, and they just made the slightest of contact. Rafa was in the wall. How disappointing for him. He almost didn't race because he had a fever, so he hadn't done really any practice. And himself and Julian, I know, are friends off the track. So Rafa was particularly upset about it, but you have to say it was one of those incidents where you just look at it and you go, how did that happen?
Just completely unlucky. You could argue that Julian came from a little way back, but we've seen that. Seen drivers come from a lot further back than that, I think. And we know Julian not a dirty driver at all. And the contact was so minor. It was just unlucky for Rafa that it sent him into that slide. And unlike Sam, we mentioned he had that big runoff area. Well, there was nothing for Rafa, was there? He was straight into the wall, no chance to recover it. And for it to happen on the last lap as well, after driving such a good race, it's just, well, just double as gutting, isn't it? Especially as he wasn't feeling well as well. Yeah, it was a real slam dunk for him.
Definitely was, but obviously positive is, the pace he had there. He could have, got even second place depending on how penalties played out. But nevertheless, Blizzard finished in the win. Sauber won too, actually. Neo taking his first podium. He's up for the Driver of the Day vote on Twitter. Then you've got Squeezy, Odems, Julian, Lakitu, myself, Malloy, and James Slater rounding out the top 10. All right, let's get Brumadinho in. He's a man that's caused a storm since he started, but he's also had a bit of heartbreak as well. But we're going to chat to him in just a second. Hello, Brumadinho. Welcome to the Late Night Talk Show. Good to have you here. Just make sure your audio is set to be shared, so all of our viewers can hear you.
It is, yeah.
Awesome stuff. All right. I mean, we're going to have to start with Brazil. Have you, first of all, have you ever had that happen to you before?
No,
and secondly,
it was my first time.
Tell us how it must have felt absolutely heartbreaking, considering your first pole, fight for the win, and it just robbed you.
Yeah, not only that, and as well, it's my second home country. My mother is from Brazil. That was, very heartbreaking for me. It was when I got stuck in the pit lane. It was like I was just staring at the TV, and I was like, no, please, no.
I mean, as a driver, I always encourage trying to take the positive things from races like that. You got pole position, you were leading, had a good battle with Sam, you were able to take your tyres longer, and you definitely had a chance to win the race. So is that something you plan to do in Abu Dhabi next week?
Yeah, I hope so. Abu Dhabi is not a track which I'm particularly good at, or as good as Brazil. But I hope I can finish the season on a high, and taking that to the next season.
Awesome stuff. And obviously, you haven't completed that many races this season. You joined with about a third left to go. What are your impressions of One Hub Racing? And you've had a couple of races where you've had to fight back through the field after a disappointing incident, which wasn't your fault. But have you enjoyed your time here racing so far?
Yeah. I mean, all the people are very nice guys. Me and Sam still had some chats about our battles so far, and the racing itself, it's very clean. It's very good. Some fast guys. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Awesome stuff, Jono. Do you obviously you commentate on Brumadinho every week? You've been impressed with him since he joined the league.
Yeah, absolutely. You've had really good pace, obviously some great results as well, and would have had another one, I'm sure, at Brazil if the pit lane glitch hadn't have ruined it for you. What are your aims for the remainder of the season? Like, do you think you can win next time out? And also, when you came into the league, did you expect to have this sort of pace and mixing it against the front guys who've been there all season long?
I was hoping that I have the pace. No, I didn't expect that. Honestly, I'm quite happy that I have the pace. If I can win next week, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I mean, Sam's just pretty quick. Marley's, he has some superb pace. I try my best. Maybe a podium. That's my goal for the next race. Yeah.
Brumadinho, next season, obviously you're a driver who's able to, score good results. Do you think you can, perhaps mount a title challenge?
Yeah, I hope so. I already talked to Samster about it that I want to go for the title next season. Um, I think I have the pace. I think I have the consistency to do it. Um, I mean, consistency wins you the championship. So yeah, I think if I don't have a glitch, I can yeah win some races and probably win the championship.
Awesome stuff. So that's a marker laid down to all of your rivals for next season. Just speaking of next season, obviously you joined the league, as I said, during the season. So for the start of next season, you'll have to go through the process of qualifying night, which I don't know if you know, but we get all drivers on one night, split into lobbies, and they have to set their quickest time on a track chosen for the season. So that's exciting, and then obviously you'll be able to apply for your first team contract, which you can't do during the season. When you join during the season, you're looking forward to those sorts of things. And what do you make of media day? Do you enjoy off track stuff like that?
Yeah, I really enjoy it because it seems like we are real racing drivers with that stuff and contracts, interviews, all that stuff. I mean, there are not many leagues that do this kind of stuff, and yeah, I really enjoy that.
Awesome, Jono. Do you have anything to ask for Medina before we close out the show?
The Pinnacle tier overall this season, obviously, we've mentioned it a few times. There's been a fair few sort of incidents and collisions and stuff along the way. Like, are you aware of that at all joining in late? And is it going to affect the way you drive at all in the final race? Trying to keep it, out of the way of other drivers.
Yeah, I mean, I got taken out twice in Russia, so I'm aware of it. No, I'm just going to drive as usual, going full attack, and if I get taken out, it happens. Can't change that. So
in Russia,
yeah.
though, you didn't get taken out. Sam used his magical powers to steer Pete's car and somehow hit you and Don Cole, so he could just sail right through.
Through the gap, yeah.
Oh, that was devastating.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the way he just came across track and collected both of you, and Sam was just far enough behind where he could just sail through. But
yeah, it was very strange. It was a very strange accident.
I guess it's one of those to look back on in seasons to come and go, yeah, I was a part of that one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun story to tell. So yeah.
Awesome. Alrighty. So 1 round to go. Abu Dhabi 21. We started in October. We're about to finish in March. And then the week after, you also have the Champions Charity Race, which if you don't know any info on, head over to our Twitter at OneHub Racing and you can find out all the information on how you can support the Champions Racing for charity. Jono, one more talk show next week. We're going to have some commentators in the late night talk show who have commentated on our drivers all season, and it'll be good to get their thoughts, and we'll extend the talk show a little bit so we can have time to talk to them all. And of course, Jono, your last talk show and last week as a race steward for this season before going on your holidays. Are you gonna I would say you're gonna miss it, Jono, but with the incidents that sometimes we've had this season, you're looking forward to the break, I imagine.
Yeah, looking forward to the break. I've enjoyed doing the talk show a lot this season. It's been really good fun, and the commentator with Kieran as well, obviously, in Pinnacle. Stewarding, it's had its ups and downs, as stewarding always does. So I just ask everybody, please be kind to me at Abu Dhabi.
Awesome stuff. And if you're in the prestige tier, please do not let Odems win the race, because. Next week, you will have a little surprise just before the podium tier. Something will be released for season 13. As most of you know, we like to keep it very secret, but you'll have something on Friday before Abu Dhabi at 6:30 p.m. Being released. So make sure you keep an eye on our social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Our website to find out information on the new season, www.onehubracing.com. And yeah, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe. And thank you very much for watching. Brumadinho, thank you for joining us and talking to us tonight. Jono,
thank you for
I will
having
speak to you
me.
next week. Cheers, guys.